Hi, I'm Carolina, and I am the host of Sincerely Carolina, a series of educational conversations about current social issues with local and international experts. Make sure you tune in every Saturday on Cool FM from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Bye! Bon dia! Bon dia, happy Saturday. Mis espero que você tenha bom semana, whatever it means to you. Mis espero que você está bom, produtivo, contento. Pa isso não cuta den full swing de summer. Anto tá haciendo yang de atividade, mis espero que está leuk. Awe, just para você nos também hasi episódio aqui na inglês, maneira você sabe, tem hora nos tá hasi aqui, não sempre tá code switch, pero tem hora nos hasi episódio não full de idioma of outro, para assim nata seguro que nos gastam por expressar mes e papi di tópico nan kunanta experto ding de idioma kunanta sinti confortável. Awe nos lo tá papiando na inglês, just para você sabe. Reminder ko na sa live rin ko fam sa Facebook, sa YouTube. Idi Sincerely Carolina, das bo por haya episode aki live for aquí online. Pero tambe ora ko ikaba bo por rewatch and re-listen. Anto otro simang elot available rin bo favorite podcasting platforms sa the Spotify of Apple Podcasts. So without further ado, may karabisa daan kina may awesome sponsors for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Today, we will be talking about parenting from a place of calm. So thank you to La Roche-Posay, to Total, and to Pringles. I appreciate you so much. And of course to Gula Fam for the space. All right, so I will begin with letting our guest introduce herself. Clementia, tell us who you are and why you're here today. Why you think you're here today.
Bon dia to Henry. Good morning, everyone in Radio Land. And thank you, Carolina, for inviting me to share this space with you. So who I am so many things.
Please do tell us about the many things.
Okay, so I'm originally from St. Lucia, and some 17 years ago, I migrated to Aruba to take advantage of a dual opportunity of wanting to do my PhD work, my doctoral studies, and also to teach at the University of Aruba. I'm a social worker. In the heart, and I really mean it. I think I was really called for that, and that's my passion, that's my vocation, that's what I love for. And I practiced for about maybe 25 years as a social practitioner.
Wow.
And I've worked in various fields of practice, so I bring here experiences working with youth, working in community. My first job as a social worker was a youth and sports officer, so I worked in that area, then community work, and then I was a court social worker for many years in our family court, which I was an advocate for, a special court dedicated to address issues relating to women and children and adolescents in difficult circumstances. And then afterwards, I became the Director of Human Services and Family Affairs. Now, in St. Lucia, our social services sector is not compartmentalized as it is in Aruba, with a lot of foundations providing those services. It's highly centralized, meaning as the Director of Social Services, I manage what would be equivalent in Aruba, to Direction Social Isaac SBHA, that is Services for Children and Persons with Disabilities.
Okay.
Also Sabbath, who I actually manage the home for older persons in St. Lucia. And also Direction Valdera, that is child protection. Also Bureau Sostenemi, Fundación Guiami. I mean, the whole gamut of social services is all under one roof that I manage. So this is who I have been as a practitioner. And academically, I just finished my doctoral research, my PhD, so to speak, from Anton de Kom University. And I have a master's in clinical social work from Howard University in Washington, D.C. I did my bachelor's in social work at the University of West Indies in Jamaica. And I also have another part of me. I'm very religious and spiritual. I think I do the intersectionality quite well. Some of my friends don't understand. So I have a degree in missionary catechesis, which is equivalent to Catholic theology, but specialized in teaching of the faith, which we call catechesis. So I studied in Rome. I studied in Rome many, many, many years ago. And it was a bachelor program, and it was in Italian. So we had a first crash course in Italian. And so this is me in capsule. And I'm also a mother and a single mom of a daughter. So this is who I am in capsule. And at the moment, I am an assistant professor at the University of Aruba in the Social Work and Development Program.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you did this very extensive introduction, because I always ask people to do it. And generally, they only focus on like the specific area, you know, why they're here today type of thing. And then I have to like ask follow-up questions to get them, you know, like out of that shell, because, you know, you mentioned also the word intersectionality. You are who you are because of all of these identities. And that is what you bring into the work that you do, but also the perspective that you have, right? Very interesting sidetrack. I do want to know, do you still practice Italian or not at all?
No, parlo italiano, pero no. See, I'm going to. Every time I try to speak another language, I find myself speaking Papiamento.
I know.
Even when I go home for vacation and we speak the French Creole, I try to speak French Creole, but I'm thinking in Papiamento. So now I'm trying to speak Italian, and I'm thinking. Anyway, yes, I don't. But when I do meet occasional people who speak Italian, I try, but I still struggle, because I think if you're not in the space where the language is spoken after 6 months, you tend to forget it. But if there is immersion within a week or two, you pick it up. But I used to be fluent, but not anymore.
Anche io también. Anche io parlo un poco di italiano.
Molto bene.
Sì. Pero no perfetto. So maybe we can practice later. That's why I asked, yes, and I agree. It's very hard because it is a Latin language. And very interestingly, I when I was studying and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I did a minor in Greek and Roman mythology. So I did also spend some time in Rome.
Awesome.
Yes, learning about, you know, the Catholic faith and some time in Vatican specifically to learn about, you know, how. So very interesting, and I would love to talk about that maybe some other time. We're here to talk about something else. So thank you for telling me this, you know, new part of you that I didn't know before, that now I'm very interested in, and I would love to talk about.
Let's go for coffee.
Yes. Okay. So you know, I think if people hear your name, if they hear Miss Clementia or now Dr. Clementia Eugene, I think most people think about the social work and development department of the University of Aruba, right?
Yeah.
And you have been, I think, a pillar in that department, but also because what I hear from a lot of people and what I heard during this week, for example, when we posted the flyer, is that you really help people see things from different perspectives. And you know, if I hear your background, I understand that too, that you're probably able to find ways to talk to people about different things from different perspectives. So I do want to know, what made you want to research or decide that, you know, parenting specifically from a place of calm was a topic that needed attention? that needed, not just attention, but that you wanted to talk about, that you wanted to understand. We had a little chit chat right before we started, and I love doing that because it also gives me a perspective on where like people's minds are at right before the episode starts. And we were talking about how different the times are, and that you said something that I thought was also very nice, that you said it must be so challenging for parents nowadays, right? To connect and to have conversations, because the gap, even though it's not necessarily age, but the gap between all the technological advances that happened between when a parent was a child and the children that they have now is so huge. And that gap wasn't that big for previous generations of parents, right? So you mentioned that, and we were people watching for a little bit. you were people watching, and I just participated for a little bit. But we saw that. So lifetime, and I think anybody, you just sit somewhere, and within 15 minutes we will see the same phenomenon, right? So tell me a little bit about what made you want to get into this and to want to research it and want to talk about it.
That's a very good question in terms of what's the whole, like the genesis of where I'm at today. So I grew up in a home riddled with domestic violence, alcoholism, physical abuse. So as a child, I have 5 of the ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And so I've always been curious to know, how is it possible for children to live in a space where they feel safe and secure and they could live to their fullest potential? And I've always studied domestic violence and child maltreatment. So for my doctoral research, I focused a lot on the prevalence of child maltreatment in Aruba. And I was concerned about the high prevalence. You're talking about 7 out of every 10 children in Aruba experience some form of child abuse. And that disturbs me. So I haven't found the data, and I use a particular theoretical perspective. My quest now is to contribute to the response, to contribute to remedying that situation. And hence the reason now, in this new juncture of my professional life, I see my contribution as promoting and engaging in parenting education from a space of calm, so as to raise children that are mentally healthy, that are resilient, that are strong, that do not perpetuate violence that they experience. So now I'm very much interested in my contribution, and I like to take it always from a space of intergenerational trauma. And what's the response? If we as parents could learn how to parent from a space of calm, and so our children can model that behavior, then we can create a world, then we can create an Aruba characterized by peace, and resilient children, and strong children, and confident children. And so that is what I would wish for Aruba.
I love how you how you mentioned that, and that it came from acknowledging that yes, there is this issue, but also understanding that it needs active work from the people raising the children, right? And you mentioned a very high number, and I'm kind of stuck on it. I'm not surprised particularly by the number, when you say 7 out of 10. But I do have a lot of conversations with a lot of the foundations you mentioned earlier. And the truth is that I think we still aren't aware of what abuse really is, right? And what it means for a child, what it does to a child. And we don't have like an agreed upon understanding of what a safe environment for a child is or should be, right? What would be considered something that is damaging for their development. And then and we can talk a little bit about that if you want, but I'm also interested in in understanding when you say a place of calm, right? What are you what do you hope to mitigate from that place of calm? What is the type of abuse or the type of, or the behavior that would then, be mitigated when parent from a place of calm? Like, what does it shift?
It really shifts from domestic violence. Now, Aruba has concerns about issues of domestic violence. So it shifts it from how do we communicate.
Okay.
The biggest concern or the biggest response would be improving interpersonal communication at all levels within the family. So within spouses, within partners, and then within children and parents. So when I talk about parenting from a space of calm, it's another way to say effective communication, but the word communication is so broad and has been beaten around for so long. So I prefer to say calm because then it speaks directly to the behavior that we want change and the outcome that we expect. Yeah. So that's what I'm referring to. How do we do that? And what does that look like? Okay, so it really looks like, instead of responding and reacting, that we listen attentively to each other. And how do we listen? And it means that we need to be able to really keep quiet and listen to what the child is saying, or what your spouse is saying, or what your mother or father is saying, and to ask questions of clarification, and to respond by speaking softly and calmly, and using words, kind words, as opposed to harmful words. Yeah? And also to be able to say, I am sorry. Forgiveness is one of another critical ingredient of parenting from a space of calm. It means also being able to observe, because not all of us have the capacity to express how we feel and our emotions. No, expressing feelings and emotions don't come easy if we don't have the vocabulary. But then we would respond using nonverbal communication, using our body language. And so how do we learn a new way of expressing our feelings? So it requires being able to make I statements, being able to observe behaviors and try to understand what is the meaning of that behavior. So I use a lot of the iceberg model in my practice, in my teaching parenting. So you see a particular behavior, yelling and screaming, but this behavior that you see and hear, yelling and screaming, beneath it is communicating something. Could it be fear? Could it be some intergenerational trauma that's been triggered? So how do we go deep beneath the surface to identify what is the unfelt need? What need is not being met? That's why I'm screaming and I'm shouting. Now, as parents, we do that well when our children are born. If they're crying, we think maybe they're either hungry or the diaper is wet and it needs to be changed. But what happens when the children get adult? That intuition, it doesn't come naturally, And so we need to learn those. These are behaviors that can be learned. And then come through trial and error, practice, training, and so on. Sorry, I'm talking so much.
No, that is the whole point, for us to talk so much. But thank you for that explanation. And you mentioned a couple of things that I think are, everybody's, I don't want to say, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people, certainly the people that listen to Sincere Carolina, have heard these things before, when we talk about being reactive and responding, right? Rather than listening. Like, we hear this, and I often talk about these type of things in different contexts, and, we can talk about it in the socioeconomic context, the pressures that people have. A lot of people are surviving, or people are doing, the job of multiple people at the house because there's just one parent, for example, or children who are doing adults' jobs, right? Because the parents aren't there, etc., which makes people be tired, and exhausted, and just And it takes energy. Anytime we want to change a behavior or we want to learn a new behavior or a new pattern, a new habit, it's going to require active work for you to catch yourself in that moment and choose different than whatever muscle memory is about to happen. What have you found in your research? You know, when we think about the general population of Aruba, when we think about, you know, maybe I don't want to say people's capacity necessarily, like in the context of like, are they ever able to learn? But people's capacity and the time and space that they actually have, you know, within the realities that we live in and within the socioeconomic realities that most people live in, and the reality of, you know, what is demanded of them every day at work. What capacity is left for making that very conscious change and shift? Yeah, just
The solution, the remedy is breath work.
okay.
It's as simple as this, but it comes with some difficulty in maintaining the practice, but it is possible. Breath work. We have our breath, which we take with us everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the biggest tool that we can use to practice or to live from a space of calm.
Mm-hmm.
It means being able to recognize that you're about to get angry or mad or aggressive, and to catch yourself
Mm-hmm.
and just pause, just stop and do some deep breathing exercises.
Okay.
And one of the purpose or the outcome of the breathing is to be able to change that perspective, to be able to move from angry to calm, to being kind, to being compassionate. So by taking some deep breaths, it really activates the part of the brain responsible for regulating emotions, which is the prefrontal cortex. So if we take some moment to do some deep breathing exercises, automatically it activates this part of the brain, and the body response is to be still, is to be calm, and to feel kind, more social engagement, more peace, and that's it. And the thing about the breath that makes it, where I said it is easy,
Mm-hmm.
is because the breath is something you have with you always.
Mm-hmm.
You take it with you everywhere you go. It is free. It's not like you leave your breath home and you go to work, you leave your breath home,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go pick up your child from school to attend a conference and hear the good news or the bad news. It is always available.
Mm-hmm.
And the breath is neutral. It doesn't take sides compared to if you go to a friend and complain about a problem with your spouse, they might more or less agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah? And don't
Of
help
course.
you see both sides, you know?
That is also not their job.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. But your breath is neutral.
Yes.
And the other thing I like about the breath is that you do not need anybody's permission to breathe, Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to ask permission from your pastor, your priest, from Buddha, from Haile Selassie,
Mm-hmm.
from a saint, or your hero, your shiro. You just have it with you.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we make bigger use of what we have that is embedded in our physiology
Mm-hmm.
for us to calm down?
I think it's like something, maybe you also said it's not, we all have it, but the moment where you would learn it, where most people would learn it, is probably a therapeutic setting, right? That is where most people nowadays
Yeah.
end up learning it. Certainly where I have learned it. You know, it's I love how you mentioned that as most people know, the president of Fundação Autismo Aruba, and we're always trying to find like, okay, things that we can use during our workshops to actually make the point that we are saying makes sense, right? So we use a lot of fidgets to make a point about adults using them, but also normalizing the use and how they can be helpful and not disruptive. but we recently started getting more and more of breathing stickers, because we have realized too that a lot of people they haven't had that moment where they learned breathing techniques. And breathing stickers are helpful. Like they guide you. It's a simple way of doing it. But we recently ordered new stickers for our teacher symposium, which will be in October. And when we have more information, I will share, I promise. But we also got stickers that have like the emotion wheels on it, because you also mentioned that, right? And it seems a little silly to have like these stickers with these wheel emotions, but again, unless you have been in a therapeutic setting, the chances that you have been really pushed to identify specific feelings, and that is a thing, from the perspective of like Fundación Autismo, a lot of parents or neurodivergent people like myself, you probably have been in therapy for a very long time. You are known to the therapeutic bubble. And so these tools seem normal, right? Or they have become normal. They are part of your everyday life. You have this big vocabulary because you have learned through years of therapy to have this vocabulary, right? But also these breathing techniques. But I do have to say that when I am in settings where I am not in that bubble, so a place like work, for example, or, like a big meeting and stuff, that moment of like your body has that immediate reaction, maybe you make a face, etc. You're surrounded by very reactive people that I have it. I do not have a poker face. Like, you will see it on my face immediately. If I am bothered, if I thought something was funny, odd, whatever it was, you will see it. And then I do like to take some time though, because I'm like, I need to process how this made me feel. But then you'll have somebody who might be a little bit more reactive that will put you on the spot immediately and would want you to explain something that you yourself haven't even processed, right? So I find it very interesting how you mentioned it. Yes, we have our breath with us, but I think not enough people respect when people are trying to do these things, right? When people are in a meeting or in a work altercation, or even like between partners or between parents towards children, like people have the sense of urgency all of the time. Like, I have to immediately respond. I have to immediately say what I'm thinking. I have to immediately say how this made me feel. And we haven't normalized that even if you're in a meeting with like 15 people or whatever, I need a minute. Like, give me a second to see how I really feel about this thing. Like, you're not going to put me on the spot, right? It's not something that people will feel that comfortable doing. And they don't do it at work, and they certainly don't do it at home. So yes, we have this thing that we carry with us.
I think we need to teach people and make it available, and don't wait for the therapeutic space with a psychologist to learn this. And I think it needs to become the new normal. And so we need to talk about it a little bit more in program like yours and make it available. So yes, I say that we need to use our breath. And there are many techniques, a wide variety of techniques on how you could use your breath. There's the counting 1 to 2, 1 to 10. I also like to do the finger breathing, and that's a good way. And sometimes when I'm in meetings and I hear things that triggers me, I'm better at it now than before.
Okay.
Because before I used to do the reaction. I would hear something that I don't particularly agree with, or it triggers some unresolved conflict within my own adult life. I would immediately react. But now I am able to respond, or not even respond. Just recognize that I'm being triggered, and I just sit back and my hands under the table, and I'm doing my deep breathing. And it's amazing how it helps me change perspective. So instead of being angry, I immediately do my deep breathing secretly under the table, and I'm able to not react at all. Or if I choose to respond with kindness as opposed to with anger, rage, and aggressivity. That's that. The other thing is, it's okay to say that this or if somebody were to ask you a question directly, of course, you can't ignore, and you don't want to react because you're busy working on yourself from a space of calm. I often say to myself, what you've said is very important, but I think I need some time. Give me some more time to reflect on it. Yeah? Or sometimes I would train my students to do it this way and to say, because sometimes you feel you just need to get out of the room as a way of controlling your behavior and controlling your emotions. And you know who you are. If you were to stay in that space, you might erupt, no? And it might be not not the behavior that you want to demonstrate. And you simply say, but this is very important, but can I be excused for a few minutes? I really want to work on a project, or I want to respond to something that just come up. But that thing, it's you. The project is you. You are the person that needs the time out. So just give me a few minutes. I think I want to attend to something very important, or to a project, or to a task. But this is you. So you go out into the bathroom and you wash your face, because water has a sense of calming. Or sometimes I would just wash my hands, and I do this. I go to the bathroom, I just open the tap, and I just wash my hands. And in that process, I focus on the smell of the soap, the sound of the water, and that helps to do the shift in consciousness and the shift in emotional regulation. So there are some little tips and tricks that I've been practicing over the years, that I have been reading about, and I think these are some of the things we need to begin to teach people. And it is so important, because I don't know if you're familiar with a study that just came out. It's a study, I can't pronounce the names of the people who wrote it, but the study, it's in Dutch, and it translates to The Shadow Side of Aruba, Youth Crime, Vulnerability, and Resilience. It just came out in this year, and it's a study coming out of the Office of Public Prosecution in Aruba. I don't want to pronounce the name because I might say it badly, but it's very, very troubling, the results. The results is talking about the state of juvenile delinquency in Aruba. And it says 1.5% of youth are engaged in conflict with the law, and it's not a justice issue. They argue, having done the research, it's as a result of family disruption, domestic violence, poverty, parental separation, neglect, inadequate supervision, and that youth are seeking a sense of belonging and identity in Aruba, and so the parents are not available to do that, and they seek support in their peer group, and that's the reason why we have a concerning number of young people who are involved in assault and threats and public violence and use of firearms. I read this and I was concerned, and my reaction is, what can I do? I feel as if I have a responsibility. Sometimes my friend says, Clem, you think that you are Jesus Christ, and you carry the world of the weight on your shoulder. But I'm like, Clem, this is parallel to my study on child maltreatment.
Yes.
Yeah. So it means, therefore, as parents, we have a responsibility for the small, it's a minority of our young people. Most of the young people in Aruba are doing very, very well. It's just a minority. But if we do not pay attention to it, it can grow and tarnish our beautiful, Dushi Aruba. So, again, that's why I have decided in this next phase of my life, my contribution, my mission, my vocation, my passion is to really empower parents so that they can better support those children who are at risk. Because I desire a world, I desire Aruba where our young people and our children would thrive. And so the responsibility really begins with parents. And teachers are already doing their job in terms of the education in school. So if we can really have more of this program targeting parents and how we can support them in their parenting role and how they communicate with their children. And I say this to make the point I want to make. Where is that behavior coming from? Yeah, if we really want to tackle it, we need to go to the source. And that's where my concern about working from an intergenerational perspective comes to play, because our parents, the way we parent is the way we ourselves were parented. And so we just replicate that same model. So we need to look at what is it that we inherited from our parents that no longer serves us, that no longer serves this generation of children and youth, that we could do differently. Because if you look at domestic violence and child abuse in particular, it's because my parents abused me, and so I abuse my children. This is the way, this is learned behavior. This is how I learned to parent. And so it continues from one generation to the next to the next. And so we need to work intergenerationally. And what does that mean? We need to work with one family at a time and bring all the family generations we could find that exist in a room over a period of time to talk about those childhood memories, to talk about storytelling, to talk about the pain and the heal and the joyful things as well, and to celebrate the joyful moments. But where there was pain and harm, let's talk about it. Let's make a commitment. Never, never, never again. It does not, it can disappear if we consciously make the decision to change. So I was severely abused as a child, physically. And at school, it was even worse. That was the norm. And so I decided a long time ago, when and if I become a parent, I will never, ever use physical violence. So that's one way of cutting the cycle. But for some of us, we may need training and coaching and group work and parental intervention in order to do it. And that's
But
what I would want to do.
but also the environment, and I love that you mentioned it, because I do mention it on the show more times. I use my parents as examples as well, because that is what my mom does also come from a culture where it's very normal to use where physical violence is considered discipline, right? My mom's Latin, and she's Latin and indigenous. It's just it's very ingrained in how that works. And the same thing that you just said, it's the same for her. She also made like this promise to herself that if and when she becomes a parent, she's not going to do that. And she was able to keep to that, right? Yeah. But it does come at a cost. And that's when I mentioned that it's the environment as well, right? Because in my mom's case, she married my dad, and my dad's it's a Dutch man. He comes from a family where he didn't grow up at all with physical abuse, so it was easier because you found in somebody, a partner that understood the importance of not having that, right? But also both my parents didn't live in the countries where they came from, so they had like this distance. My mom's parenting was not continuously questioned. It was only questioned when we were on holiday, right? Because then they would see like this feral child, and everybody had so many concerns. I also happened to be neurodivergent, right? So I just behaved very differently, and they were concerned. And then my mom had to do the explanation, but she was able to program herself every single time when we went on holiday that this moment of people questioning her parenting would only take 2 weeks. That's it, right? We would never stay longer than 2 weeks. I can't remember us staying longer than 2 weeks, right? And my dad was the best scapegoat she could ever use. Like, immediately, if people asked too many follow-up questions, she would be like, I married a white man. We really cannot hit the kid. Like, that's it. End of discussion. We can't do this. And the discussion would stop, right? And then they were like, oh, yeah, she married a European man, and whatever. But that is, she was able to, to find these ways to keep people at bay for her to make a different choice. But all my aunties who did not, leave that environment, I don't want to say that it was the same, because according to my mom, it's not the same. But they did still use a lot of the same practices, right? To educate, to discipline. So I was able through her and now as an adult see what that meant for her to make that choice continuously, right? See that it was, I don't want to say much easier, but it certainly was easier for her to do that because she was able to isolate herself and choose who she would befriend and choose who she would be around. That would not pressure her, basically, right, to falling back into that pattern. But a lot of families, when you live, for example, with multiple generations in a household, or you live on a plot of land where all your neighbors are your aunties and your cousins, which is common for some people, right? For some families.
And it has
in
its
Aruba.
strengths.
Of course, it's amazing. It has a lot of benefits.
A lot of benefits.
It does, right?
But
it also comes with that pressure, with maybe the things that you do want to do different.
And so we need to be able to work intergenerationally, because it's not easy to break the cycle. You have a perfect model, example of having relationships outside of that generational tradition of parenting, and that is one way of breaking the cycle. Another way is just making the decision that I'm going to do differently. So I don't drink because I experience what it is to live with an alcoholic family. And my entire neighborhood was, surrounded with families with alcoholism as a problem, as a concern. And I saw the way it disrupted my life and the life of the other children in the neighborhood, and I made a decision to do differently. And my sisters as well have also decided that we don't drink. So that's one way of making it. But to be able to get there, you need to be honest with yourself that this is a problem. But in Aruba, alcoholism is a problem. I have the research from the STEP research that was it was done with collaboration with DVH and PAHO, 2024, and it says that 50% of the total population drink in the last 30 days. 21% were engaged in heavy episodic drinking. But yet still,
and this is self-reporting, right?
This
because
is self-reporting.
At the end of the day, the numbers are most probably higher. But
so
yes,
I hear that data, and I like to live my life from a space of evidence-based research and data. Data fascinates me, and then I'm saying like, wow. But yet still, when I listen to the heartbeat of people who live in Aruba, I don't think they recognize alcoholism as a problem. They see it as normalized. But we need to begin to see it as a concern, and not just in the here and now, in the present moment, but what is behind. The alcoholism is the behavior that we see.
Yes.
If we take the iceberg bottle, if we go beneath to the source, why are people drinking? Is it a facade? Is it hiding intergenerational trauma? What is it masking? What is it hiding? We need to ask those questions first. Is it working? Is it not responsible for disrupting
even more? Yes.
Even more. And so those questions need to be asked first, to recognize it as a behavior that's not serving me, that has severe consequences, and there to make the change. But if we go intergenerationally, you would see parents and grandparents and everybody have been drinking. But beneath all that drinking is some trauma, some problem. We need to identify it and then begin to make the decision. And I don't think it is, we should see it as cool. And sometimes it disturbs me. It really disturbs me. It worries me when I see this. And I thought, again, I don't leave it at that. I say, what can I do? And I try to do little things in my own spaces.
But that's good. That's good. And that also, sets an example that, I don't want to say that, like, oh, your life has to be an example, but in the sense of, like, the choices that you make, but also, how you carry said choices, or how you meant, things. They show the people around you that there is a different way, that there is, a way forward, that, that something is something different is possible.
Yes.
It was you mentioned the drinking and it not being an issue, which is kind of reminded me of something. As a lot of people right now we're in the. It's like we go in and out of the dieting craze in the world, right? It's like apparently being super skinny is like in now again. So a lot of like conversations, etc., around dieting is like normal again. I feel like for a while people didn't really talk about that, and now it's back on. And one of the things that come up a lot when you talk about dieting is alcohol, obviously, because it is high calorie and it is disruptive if you want to have like a healthy life. And something that I have heard continuously coming up in conversations is that it's you now have like GLP-1s, etc. And I was talking to somebody about it, and I mean I don't hide it. If you follow me on my social media, we have been on a very long trying to conceive journey, which also included a lot of weight gain and eventually weight loss with the help of medication. And I'm open about it if people talk to me and ask me about it. And one of the things that I said is it made my stomach like a lot more sensitive, so I don't drink anymore. And people will ask me like, oh, do you want to drink? And I'm like, no. And then they're like, why? And then if I feel like it, I will explain. I will be like, it makes my stomach upset and I make choices. I'd rather it be upset because I had the snack that I really wanted to have rather than the drink. Like there is no benefit gain in that moment for me. But then, I talk to people and I've heard conversations which seemed very light, and I chose not to get into them too much, and sometimes I do choose to get into it, but of people that stopped their weight loss journey because it disrupted their drinking. Because and then I'm like, okay, why were you doing weight loss in the first place? Because then that also says something. Are you doing it because you just want to look better, or do you want to actually get your health on track, right? All of those things determine how motivated you are, for example. But and then people will be like, no, because like if I can't have drinks, then it's all worth it. And I'm like, is it the drinks? Because usually if you say like that you have the drinks because you're having like good time with your friends and stuff, you can still make healthy choices and have like a good time with friends, right? Like, why is a drink such an important thing?
But how about drink with a limit?
For example, also, right?
You don't have to drink and then get drunk and disorderly and then have difficult conversations.
But it was
to violence.
Exactly. But it was
But
such
you could
an
drink in
important,
moderation.
But it was such an important like decision maker, right? And that worried me because it almost made me feel or wonder, are you unable to spend time with those people that you say you love and enjoy without having to dampen some of your sensories?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, maybe I don't go that deep into it because, like with people, because it's like, it depends who you're talking to if you really want to get into it. But I was wondering, and then I started to notice myself too. Was I like having one or two drinks within spaces also so I could like, lower my anxiety and stuff? And then I'm like, if this space is causing me this anxiety, maybe I just don't want to go, right? And I'm not going to have to resort to, drinking a glass or two of wine just to tolerate whomever and that's the thing. And you mentioned it's such ingrained and people do not see it as an issue because it has become almost like a tool for a lot of people, which also makes you wonder if we are just continuously in spaces that are disrupting our nervous system and
also also our health as well. So
yes.
What's the benefit and who benefits when you drink excessively? Look at the number of vehicular accidents in Aruba and how many as a result of, drunk driving. And how many domestic disputes happen in families as a result of, alcoholism, and what impact that has on children. And what message are we communicating with our children about this sort of behavior? So my space or my point of departure is not that we could have a world that is perfect, and no world is perfect, no family is perfect, no social institution is perfect. but can we think and dream of a world and a space where there is moderation
Mm-hmm.
and health becomes what's more important, and good relationships become what is important, and creating healthy spaces for our children to thrive so that they can live to the highest potential. That's that. And also, it goes back to, for me, it's the role of parents. And also, some of it, a lot has to do with our choices, but our choices can be influenced by what we have inherited in our DNA. And we can't run away from that. Some things are just inherited.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our bloodstream, it's in our, it's our DNA marker that there was alcoholism in our family, so we are
Mm-hmm.
highly predisposed to it. Or there was abuse in our family, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse, and we become predisposed to it. But then we need for us to arrive at that space, we need to have that family conversation. And there's a psychologist of mine. She's not a friend. I just happen to have read her book on in breaking the intergenerational cycle of family trauma. I think Dr. Bouquet is her name. She's from Santo Domingo, but she lives and practices in the U.S. And she talks about what she saw in her practice, and I could identify with, Carolina, is the whole notion of intergenerational loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
That as children, we think, or as adult children, we think if we talk about the bad things that happen in our family, we are,
Yes.
it's like we are violating the
Mm-hmm.
family code. We are
Mm-hmm.
violating the whole notion of what happens in the family stays in
You're
the
bringing
family.
dishonor.
You bring this on, and then
Yes.
you are the bad one.
Uh-huh.
And so there's this sense of intergenerational loyalty where we don't feel open to talk about those secrets, those things that happen in the family that is responsible for keeping us bondage and not enjoying the good life or not experiencing healing. And so what do? We drink it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we drink and get drunk as a way to mask it and to numb it. So we really need this intergenerational. And so we feel if we do talk about it, and I have experienced that in my own family and in some of my practices, there is this issue of guilt,
Mm-hmm.
of survival
Yes.
guilt
Yes.
that, and then you go and you sabotage yourself, in order to fit in. But that doesn't serve us. So that's why I'm so interested in advocating and promoting, doing intergenerational family work, and then giving ourselves permission to break that intergenerational loyalty, so as to experience healing and wholeness and recovery, and don't repeat those mistakes in our family. So that's the conversation I wish we could have more of to address the issues of child abuse, domestic violence, alcoholism, and all those ills, that we have in our family today. I don't know what you think about it, if I'm making sense.
I am like, I loved it. Like, as soon as you said it, it clicked, and I am gonna look this person up, and I'll ask you to send me some information, because that is it puts a word into something that I have seen. Like you said, there is always like the pros and cons of growing up like with all of your family around you or not. I carry absolute no sense of like that loyalty thing, right? and so it's like, it's very freeing, but at the same time, it's lonely, because I do not have like this group of people that I can always count on. So I see both sides of it. And I get to long, what others, people like my husband, right? He did grow up in a very large family, and they come together. And I enjoyed that I was able to marry into that, and that you get to experience all the, the sense of like large families, and the sense of what a last name means, etc. But then I also get to be able to see when I'm like, maybe this is a little bit too much, and we do not have to participate if we don't want to, but it's a very interesting experience, and I was never able to put a word to it, and now you mentioned it, and I'm like, yeah, that makes so much sense. So thank you for ending today's conversation with that.
It's the end?
Yes, it is the end. I was gonna say,
quick.
I usually ask people like, what is something that you want to leave people with, but I feel like that was a very great way to leave people with, what you just said. It's for people to choosing to be conscious, to have these conversations, and try to move away from these habits that don't serve us, right? And break that loyalty. And when we say break that loyalty, it's not like in a negative way, but just the parts that are
the parts that are
negative.
not positive.
Yes.
I mean, there are beautiful things we've inherited and traditions and values we should hold on to.
Yes.
But those that don't serve us, there's no need to keep it a secret.
Exactly.
There's no need to hide it because it's responsible for the pain that we carry.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Clementia.
I enjoyed this. I thought it would have been... The time went by quickly.
It does. I told you, it does go by. I love talking, and you like to talk too. And I like I said, I always try to invite people that I am interested in talking to, that I think would be nice conversationalists. Because, yes, it's a nice conversation. But I do think we should do a follow-up. So I will reach out for that.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this. Wish you well. You're doing great work.
All right, so if you heard this towards the end, do not worry. You can listen back on Quill FM's YouTube and Facebook page, on Sincerely Carolina's YouTube and Facebook page, but also on your favorite podcasting platform, whether it is Apple Podcast or Spotify or whichever else you use. You will find it on Tuesday. Yes, we will be back again next week. Yes. Next week, we will be talking to Minouche. It is the week of Breastfeeding Awareness Week. And I have had Minouche before on the show. And so we will be talking a little bit about this. We'll have some moms and talk about breastfeeding and the importance of, continuing to talk about it and making spaces safe for moms to breastfeed, for moms to feel comfortable to breastfeed. So we'll talk a little bit about all of that. So stay tuned for that. By the way, if you haven't seen the flyers, I am doing a community involvement summer camp again this year. It's a project with Sincerely Carolina. What that means is that teenagers get an opportunity to meet some of the organizations that have been on Sincerely Carolina and understand the work that they do, but also so they learn about the work that they do, but also learn to advocate for organizations in our community. So if you have a teen between 12 and 17 years who might be interested, we still have some spots open. Just look up Summer Camp by Miss Carolina. You can just look Sincerely Carolina up and you will find it. I will see you again next week. Please be nice, be kind, make better choices in your everyday life. Thank you to my awesome sponsors who allowed me to talk about whatever I want to talk today. And today I wanted to talk to Clementia about parenting from a place of calm, and it went in all the right places. So it was a very nice conversation. Thank you to Pringles, to Total, and Roche-Posay. I appreciate you so much. See you again next week. Bye.
Hi, I'm Carolina, and I am the host of Sincerely Carolina, a series of educational conversations